Hi. Alright, so this is the FMP section. So instead of doing weekly vlogs for this term, instead of doing them as I went along, I instead took very comprehensive notes as I went. So now that the show is over, I am using this time to write up these notes by vlogging them. So for that reason I have some notes here I'm reading from in lovely glittery red pen. So I'm not doing weekly. I'm not doing it in weeks because I feel like that would drag a bit because we were doing a lot of the same things different weeks. So instead I'm doing it in sections, doing it off of the buildings we were working in, purely because I find that in the CCI we were doing a lot of research and creative process. In Emmanuel Hall we were doing making and obviously making the costumes, fitting the costumes, and then in the theatre obviously we were doing like lots of different theatre things. So I thought it made sense to split them into the buildings we were working in, purely because of the time frames that we were working around when we were in here. So for the CCI I'm gonna have 2 vlogs. I'm just splitting them so that the videos aren't too long. So in CCI vlog 1, so basically in Unit 7 we've just done all this research on our characters in the show, and then on general ideas for makeup and costume to get us into these teams. I'm in the costume and makeup team, obviously. So a lot of what we did in the first couple of weeks of CCI was using the character research we'd done in the previous term and using the ideas we had for costumes to come together as a team and then research onwards and like building up a sort of mood board collectively as the team for our meeting with our creative director Nige. So the first sort of big meeting we had was in the CCI. We put all of the different groups, so there's the nobles, the supernaturals, the mechanicals and the lovers. So we split it all out on different tables and put printed photos, made physical mood boards on the table, printed photos, scraps of fabric, different ideas that we could have to have a meeting where Nige could come around, look at all of the ideas and tell us what the directions he likes us going in, directions he'd prefer us to not go in, that he doesn't want us to, but also briefing us on the cast. So obviously they did gender blind casting when they were casting the show, so telling us what characters had been switched, what characters we need to start looking in to doing, like avoiding stereotypes or playing into stereotypes in some cases. So telling us things like one of Lysandra and Hermia are, gay, they're lesbians, so I started looking into queer fashion from that a little bit, not too heavily because we hadn't decided our groups yet, but looking for queer and LGBT influences for when making these costume and makeup decisions, and then also costuming outside of the gender norms, so not being afraid to put a boy in frill, which Nige said he was interested in for the lovers, not being afraid to put someone in a corset, etc, etc. So that's one of the ideas we discussed. We also started, we decided what colours we'd want for each group. Now we had already given our own colours and sort of decided it as a group, but just briefing it past Nige. So the nobles were yellow/gold, the mechanicals were blue for the denim, and yellow is also a very royal colour. It's got lots of royal associations throughout lots of different cultures, like Asian cultures, which I was taking a lot of influence from at the time, because in order to bring the, respond to the brief, which was bring Midsummer Night's Dream to a modern audience, I thought it'd be very interesting to look into multiculturalism, which we were already doing with the Supernaturals as requested by Nige, but using other Asian cultures, because the Supernaturals had lots of Indian influences, so using other Asian cultures and other traditional cultures around the world in the other groups is something I looked into, and something we spoke about as a group. So lots of different researchy things, and then giving us ideas to explore, telling us which, I haven't finished, the mechanicals are blue because of the denim, and then lovers pink because we think it'd be easier, you know, because instead of trying to overcomplicate it and give the nobles pink and the lovers like yellow, I think it'd be very much easier to, whilst going with like the stereotype everyone expects the lovers to be pink, we also don't want to confuse our audience. We want to keep it very easy to understand, and if all the lovers are in different shades of pink, it can be subtle or it can be more intense, and obviously that's something we looked at more as the process went on. But yeah, we decided to keep it that way because then the connotations the audience would get from that would be very clear and wouldn't confuse them, which is exactly what we want, especially considering playing with genders. If people already have expectations of the show coming in and be like, oh, Lysandra's a girl now, Lysandra's Lysandra, we wouldn't want to mess with their heads even more, in a sense. So, lovers were pink. So then mechanicals were given 0-hour working jobs. So finding out which ones are that, which ones have been gender swapped again. And then once we'd had a big chat with Nige, and decided what ideas he was interested in, taking that on into a more research stage. So right after the meeting with Nige, we sat down and we decided who was going to go with which groups, who was going to do what, and we, instead of giving someone the mechanicals as a whole, we thought it'd be interesting to give the mechanicals the mismatched vibe that that they have going for them and that Nige was really interested in. We'd give us each a mechanical to work on so that they would look like they've all been chosen by lots of different people. So I got the theatre rusher, Polly Quince. So then looking into stuff like that, lots of research into it. So once we decided, our groups decided where we were going, and all the colours and stuff like that, we started doing further research. So the thing I looked into most at the time, I'd say, is tribal paint. Now, it was a goal of mine to make sure that the tribal paint that we wanted for the supernatural/fairies wasn't meaningless. Whilst it can be used for decoration, which is something I definitely used, I still wanted there, especially for Titania, Oberon and Puck, to be clear meanings behind the location and the designs they have on their paint and in their makeup. So that's something I started looking into. I started looking at aesthetic designs, taking inspiration from African American culture, taking inspiration from Native American culture and obviously Indian culture, seeing what different places use face paint and what use warrior paint and different meanings and colours I could use with that. Potentially we were looking into using different shades of greys because we couldn't have white anymore because the moon was white. That was a problem, that'll come up later. But using different greys to see if we could use different meanings behind that, and using different applications. So messier for Puck, because Puck is, you know, the mischievous one, the one that messes everything up, essentially. So research over things like that. So detailed analysis of what the characters are and how I can translate that into their paint, into their makeup, and how I can work costume into that. So seeing what different rags and street children vibes I can work with, you know, body areas of the skin that could be shown, areas of the skin that I can work on. I did a lot of tribal paint research, can you tell? And then responding to notes that we'd gotten from Nige, so saying that henna wouldn't be able to be seen on stage because I really wanted Titania to have lots of henna on her arms, because obviously she's Indian, she's a bride to Oberon, and henna can have meanings as well, and obviously henna has lots of flower decals in it, so obviously flowers are a really important part of Midsummer Night's Dream because the flower being the potion. But we got a note from Nige saying we wouldn't be able to see henna from the stage because it's so detailed and so small and it really wouldn't pick up. We did briefly look into using perhaps UV paint to show up under certain types of lighting, but like I said, the details just wouldn't be able to be seen from the audience, especially in the theatre we were working with. So responding to, okay, so we can't do henna, so what other ways can we bring the flower detail I wanted with Titania, into that makeup? I don't want to completely scrap the idea, so taking that feedback and working from it instead of giving up and taking it to heart. So that's another thing we were doing in the CCI. So we did all of this research and, you know, justifying all of our choices like I've just been doing. I don't want to go into too much detail about specific, you know, we did this, we did this, we did this. I just want to do an overview, evaluating and analysing our work as a team as well. Ensemble work was really important that week because we were doing a lot of different things on our own, but then coming together to make those mood board pieces so that we'd seem like a strong, organised front when our creative director came in. So making sure that we can get our ideas heard and come together as a team instead of all bickering and arguing apart. So within the CCI, I had a few targets. So these ones for the first couple of weeks, a target we had as a group was to successfully divide out the work into groups between us in a timely and reasonable manner. I think this was because obviously we don't want to be bickering over it, like understanding that, yeah, you've shown, because I was given supernaturals with Kieran and then obviously my own mechanical because I'd shown a real interest in the tribal paint. So not bickering over it and being like, oh no, I want lovers just because I like pink or something like that, like having justified reasons for doing so and keeping a professional head on, and timely obviously so that we're not spending like precious time that we have wasting it arguing, wasting it, you know, looking at ideas that we'll never do because we're not with that group. For example, another target of mine was to have well-researched mood boards. What I really wanted was having, not just as a group, but for myself personally, so that I could continue on in an organised way, was to have mood boards that came from photos of things I'd seen in museums, to little like things I'd seen online. Obviously I did a lot of my research online, as many people did, but also seeing what things I could pick up from watching whatever I could grab of rehearsals. I think I sat into one early Fairies rehearsal. I went down to Emmanuel Hall specifically to see where I could, like what clothes we could put them in without inhibiting their dance, and talking to Catherine a lot to see like if we could put things on Titania's arms, etc., so that the fairies wouldn't get in the way. So well-researched tangent, but yes, I wanted to have well backed up ideas and mood boards so that I could really justify my work throughout, which I did and have been doing. So then some problems that we solved within our first couple of weeks at CCI was the first one was in our first creative meeting. Nige told us that there was going to be a moon character, so they were going to put a moon in who was going to be exclusively white, which meant our ideas of the fairies being in white had to instantly be changed. So the problem solving was to put the Titania's fairies in grey and then work with having Oberon and Puck in maybe like an off brown or a creamy colour to separate those two, because we want Oberon and Puck and Titania's fairies to look very different because obviously from different tribes and, you know, the whole argument thing. So that was a problem that we solved by just changing up the colours, and maybe also, but still keeping elements of the white. So we think we still want Titania and Oberon to have that white paint because they're both very closely linked to the moon, because that's where they get their magic from. And in the piece, they like worship her as a goddess. The moon is Artemis, so the moon being in white, and then having the fairies in different colours for that. That was a problem we solved. Another problem we had was making sure the cast was comfortable and that the costume ideas that we had were suitable for the characters. We didn't want to make anyone feel self-conscious in their costume, and we know that's not the necessarily professional thing to do, but we believe that it's better to have a actor comfortable in their costume, because at the end of the day they're going to give a better performance if they like what they're wearing and they're not feeling self-conscious on stage. So we very much had that from the beginning. So in order to solve that problem, because we decided that when we do our cast fittings, so measuring everything, you don't need an example, but measuring everything, one of us would be measuring them, and one of us, me, because I like talking to people, asking questions. One, allergies, any fabrics they can't wear, just so we know, but then also asking things like what skin they're comfortable showing, are they comfortable cropping tops, like how low cut can they go, how high up on the arms can they go, legs, etc. And then also finding out how much activity they do. So like we couldn't put someone who rolls around on the floor in a flowy skirt. So coming up with a list of cohesive questions we could all ask our actors, so that they were comfortable and suitable on stage. And asking also another one, a question I came up with was to get them to give like 3 adjectives to just describe their character, so that we could, well, to some extent, because obviously a lot of them didn't know their characters yet, but about 3 adjectives to just get them to describe their character, and then working from that and using, like, if someone said, oh, they're flirty, so or maybe we, have the top a little lower cropped, or we have shoulders out, so it's got, sexual connotations. So seeing what different things we could pull and what information we could get from our actors, and working together with them instead of just going, here's a costume, wear it, So we have that real collaborative thing that we really work on here on the performing arts course. The collaboration and ensemble is something that's really important to this course, and that's something that I definitely wanted to take into costume. I didn't want to feel apart from the whole process just because I wasn't doing practical, which definitely is something we did well. We worked together really well as a costume team, and also worked really well with the actors and the stage management team, deciding scheduling and all those different things. So yes, that was week 1 of the CCI. Woo, not week 1, vlog 1 of the CCI.